So just formally, I want to thank you, Laura, so much for coming in and being part of this today, because from my heart to yours, I know that we connect very much on most levels, to be honest. And I know that the information that you've got to share will be so fantastic for everybody to really get to know and know that there's a different way out there, that we don't have to do what society tells us to do all of the time. So what I'd love you to do, and I know we've just been sitting here chatting and chatting and chatting, is could I just get you to tell a little bit about your story, a little bit about your background for me?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I've loved you since the day I met you. I think we both had a feeling when we reached out. So we go with that with our intuition, and it's an honor to be here. And I really hope that a lot of people are able to hear this message as we just kind of sit and chit chat. So a little over 20 years ago now, when I was 34, I was a mom. I had two little children. I was homeschooling. I was caring for a sick husband at the time. I was caring for my father who lived with us, who was terminal. So he was only 3 months to live, pretty much. And so I was under a little bit of stress. But I started having pains in my abdomen that went undiagnosed for several months or more. Doctors couldn't figure it out. The end of the story was they did diagnostic surgery, and indeed I had endometriosis. And so my left ovary was fused to my bowel. So I literally could not sit straight, stand straight. And after surgery, I walked with a cane. Little did I know that in my 20s, my right lung had collapsed twice from endometriosis. So I had it going on. I was faced with the doctors had said, listen, there's no cure. We're going to have to do radical surgery. And I said, so can you leave one ovary? And she said, no, because your ovaries are affected. And she said, so it's going to be radical surgery, and then you're going to have to go on some medications for the rest of your life. And one of those medications that she was wanting to put me on was Lupron, which scared me to death. It's a chemotherapy derivative. And of course, I was Miss O Natural, so I thought, and I just didn't want to go on hormones the rest of my life. I was only 34 years old. And so something clicked in me. And I think I have a little bit of a rebellious heart. So I questioned, just like I questioned my parents, I questioned the doctors. I said, let me think about this. And I took a step back and I went to the computer. So 34 years ago, to over 20 years ago, it was Google. So I started Googling cure for endometriosis, and there wasn't one. After some time, I did find a lady in England, and I don't remember her name, unfortunately. I would give her all the credit. She said that she did heal herself from endometriosis. And so I ordered her book and subsequently her cookbook, because she had written a cookbook. And I'm like, what is it? So I get the book and I read the book, and mind blown. She started putting some pieces of the puzzle together for me, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. So that began my journey. I hired a nutritionist out of Denver, Colorado, here in the US. I radically changed my diet, and in less than 2 weeks, I was pain-free. I threw my cane away. The first thing I did is I went off sugar, and that was an amazing thing. And then that spurred my journey. Seeing those results, I began detoxifying from everything that I knew and everything that I'd been consuming, a lot of chemicals that cause estrogen imbalance, estrogen dominance in our bodies. I went on to become a certified herbalist. I then went on to become a holistic health and wellness consultant. I then went on to become a holistic health advocate, speaking to people back and forth about there's a natural way to heal the body. And then I went on to become a certified life coach. And currently I'm now a chapter president of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, which is a global association. So I've come a long way in 20 years. I'm 54 and I still eat good. I still practice all the things that I teach. And I've been completely healed for 20 years.
I really wish that I had have had you in my life back when I was younger, because I too had endometriosis. And I think I was 25 when I ended up having my hysterectomy. And it was like you said, they wanted to do a radical hysterectomy. I was fortunate enough they actually left the ovaries. But for me, back then, society didn't accept, anything that was natural. And I also had a mother-in-law who was definitely been in the medical field. So for me to go down any other route where I couldn't even get on Google or anything at that particular time was really, really tough. So I wish that I had have had you in my life. That would have changed my whole direction, because what people don't realize is that when you go ahead and you do have a hysterectomy, whether it's completely a radical one or not, down the track it still causes problems. And go in and have one so young as what I did, and as what they were trying to do for you as well, is just heartbreaking. So I think that it's absolutely amazing that you stood your ground and that you found an alternative way. There is so many women out there at the moment who's going through this, who are still being pushed down that medical track, and to know that there's something else out there is absolutely phenomenal.
And to be fair, we don't realize that there are answers outside. When I was, that age, when I was 34, I was fortunate enough to be walking the path with my husband at the time, who was very sick, and I was going to for 10 years doctor's appointments with him, and realizing that the doctors weren't able to heal him. They were not. And so the difference that gave me the strength and the courage to stand alone, and I did stand alone, was that he took the path of conventional medicine and became addicted to opioids, and it destroyed our marriage. I took and that's just the end game. That's a long story there. We won't go into that. And I took the natural way and incorporated all the pieces of the puzzle. Let's face it, it's just not one piece. But I incorporated as many pieces of the puzzle naturally, and then got relief, got healing naturally. So I'm not against conventional medicine at all. I think they can complement each other. But I will say this, I think any kind of a surgery should always be the last case scenario. We should never open the body until we have tried absolutely everything else and given it time. Where conventional medicine can give us a quick fix, sometimes holistically it takes a minute more, and that's okay. It's okay.
With long-lasting results.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely with long-lasting results. The other thing I wanted to quickly show is your book that you have. Now, I will admit that I have only just started reading it, and the information that I've already read in here is just absolutely incredible. So we will put a link up to your beautiful book that you've got here. How long ago did you write this?
It was published just this past January, but I've had a big book. I had to narrow it down because my book was so big, full of information. Like, I want to heal you of everything. Yeah. So I had to narrow it down to just the very basics of self-empowerment and self-healing and this sort of thing. So it's a very good inspirational book, and it's got 5-star reviews across the board. Everybody has loved it.
Yeah, definitely. It's one that I'm going to be certainly recommending. So when you started to heal yourself, you used food as medicine to do it.
Correct.
But that was only just one step in your journey, wasn't it?
Yes. It was funny. There was, like I said, that was one step. An important note was that I had some friends, a German lady that I loved, lived in my neighborhood, and she introduced me to juicing. And I'd go to her house and she'd make me a juice, and I'd be like, oh, that's okay. That's interesting. What's in there? Kale? Okay. And drink it and be like, that's fun. And when I got sick, I was like, I'm going to get dead serious about juicing because I understand the healing benefits. And as I learned more and more and more, juicing kept coming up as a way to heal the body because of the huge amounts of nutrients that we're putting in our body. So it was juicing as one piece. It was learning how to eat. I say this all the time, not eating to live, not living to eat, but eating to live. I flipped the switch and understood that food is our fuel. If I'm putting sugar in my body, I'm going to hurt. I'm going to feel it. If I'm putting certain triggers, soy products in my body, I'm going to feel it and I'm going to hurt. And then the other part after that was eliminating the toxins, the estrogens that were running rampant through my body, the trigger foods that were causing inflammation in my body, the processed foods. And then the stress was another huge component. We think about the physical manifestation of our illness. And many times doctors don't say, what's going on in your life? What's your stress about? And as we were talking earlier, we realize, hey, we're living in stress. And you know what that's doing to your body chemically? Your cortisol's raised, your adrenals are whacked out. You've got weight gain going on like crazy. You're inflamed. You're in fight or flight. The blood's left your torso. The blood's in your arms and legs. And now you're not digesting. Now you got IBS.
Yep.
I mean, it's just crazy. So stress was another huge component. We know that endometriosis is parallel with digestive illnesses, which I had.
Yep.
I had a IBS, I guess. I diagnosed myself. But I know there was problems there.
I had that as well. So I 100% know exactly what you mean there.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that you and I must have been sisters, but with different parents.
I think so.
I think so. I think our journey is very, very similar. Is what.
Yeah.
So when you were juicing in that, were you just doing that, once a day or?
Just once a day. I really didn't go all out and do like juice fasting, or I didn't change to an all vegan diet. I don't subscribe to any diets. I think I told you that. Mm-hmm. I just got serious where I was doing it as a sometimes hobby. When I got sick, I started doing it every day in the morning because I realized if I juiced first thing in the morning, that my body would be set up for success the rest of the day. I wouldn't have cravings anymore. I would be nutritionally not deficient for my day. So, and I had energy and my brain was clear. So I looked at it as medicine. Instead of popping a pill, I was drinking that juice.
I bet it tasted better than the medicine too.
It does. And people are like, I'm not touching that kale or that spinach. And you'd be so 100% of my clients do juicing and they don't stop. They're like, I had no idea it can taste this good.
Yeah. And personally, I haven't tried it. So maybe that's something that I should hook into and give it a really good go, hey?
Yeah, I can definitely guide you on the process. It's pretty easy though. It's pretty easy.
So what other things did you do that turned things around? Like you did your juicing and got the nutritional side, right? What else did you do?
I learned something very interesting in traditional Chinese medicine. I started learning as I became an herbalist. I learned iridology and a little bit of TCM as well, that the body, a sedentary lifestyle creates disease. And I sat a lot. I was a homeschool mom. I was sitting in my pajamas teaching my kids. It was like, oh, the body needs vibration in order for the lymph to move, in order for the organs to be fluid and be oxygenated. So endometriosis in traditional Chinese medicine equates to a stagnant liver. So I knew that there was some sludgy things going on. So I started jumping on a trampoline, rebounding. And that now we know that rebounding is super beneficial for clearing the lymph and for endometriosis and even aging women, because we want to hold on to our the organs that we do have.
Oh, yes,
and I started exercising. and that helped with not only my body. I walked 5 miles a day for 25 years. And it also helped with any stress that I had. And it wasn't until later in life that I, going through a super duper traumatic situation in my life, a different traumatic situation, that I learned how to rewire my mind away from negative thoughts. And that's another component that brought true healing.
So was there an actual trigger moment in your life that really sort of flipped that switch where you knew that you had to change your mindset?
Yeah, I was born positive.
Yeah.
I was just very much that way. And in my healing, I understood for stress that I understood the basics of stress and how to reverse it. It wasn't until later in life I understood epigenetics. And yes, I woke up. This is the craziest thing. It is just a miracle that happened in my life. And I see it now, but I didn't then.
Yep.
What we now call epigenetics in science is we understand that our genes respond to our thoughts. Well, I didn't know that. I just woke up one day. I was going through a very bad divorce with my addicted husband and a custody battle. It was super traumatic. I had PTSD. I had everything going on that you could imagine. And I had a stalker, and I was roommating with a lady that used to work for me. And she was super toxic. So one day I woke up, I ceilinged out. I literally woke up one day and I walked out onto my deck and I looked up at the sky and I shook my fist and I said, that's it. I'm done. That's it. And that was two thoughts that came to my mind. And the first thought was, not one more toxic person in my life. The final, no more. I'm going to protect myself. And the second one was, not one more negative thought will I let enter my mind. And if a negative thought, I told myself, will try to enter my mind, I had an imaginary sword. And that imaginary sword would cut that negative thought in half, and I would replace it with a positive thought. And from that moment on, Debbie, my life changed. My desires started coming into my life. The fears dissipated. And now we know that there's so much truth to our thoughts of fear, our thoughts of worry, our thoughts of stress, resentment, anger, bitterness. All of these emotions are held inside of our bodies. Anger is held inside the liver. So if you ever heard, oh, so-and-so is an angry drunk, that's because the alcohol affects the liver, and that's where the anger is.
That does not surprise me at all. I too had a defining moment, and that's why I'm sitting here just nodding, because I think that anybody that has that, that defining moment in their life when something really traumatic happens, and you just know that you can't carry on, that change is going to come. And for me, it was like I had been going down the rabbit hole of surgery after surgery after surgery, since 2016 through until I think it was last year. And in 2018, for myself, I had a car accident. And in that car accident, it was just amazing, because I basically sat there and I watched my whole life go flash in front of my eyes. We got hit up the back by one vehicle and then hit into the side by an oncoming truck. And I can remember sitting there just looking at my husband thinking, I'm going to get out of this, but he won't. And then the moment that I realized that he's okay and I'm the one who's hurt, it was like, this is stopping right here, right now.
Yes.
That's it. And I was like you, there is no more negative thoughts into my head. That's it. I'm done. And I'm only going to choose really positive people. I'm only going to choose really positive situations. And that for me was my turning point. So I really relate exactly to what you have just said.
Life-changing.
Very, very powerful.
Life-changing. And I teach people this, it's when you start implementing these simple changes in your life, guess what happens? You start attracting, like you just said, positive, uplifting, amazing people into your life, instead of attracting people in your life that are Debbie Downers, and negative people and what I call toxic people.
It's true. And the thing, but I think that for me, for the ladies that I talk to, I think they want a quick cure, and there's really no quick cure. It's all the little steps that you put together that really get there, isn't it? They all add up in the long run. And 6 months and 12 months later on, you're turning around, you're going, oh, that used to be me.
Yes, absolutely.
It's absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? How that actually
it is.
Happens. Yeah.
And it's like the whole, like you said, it's the whole picture. It's everything. The body's out of balance is all it is. It's not that something terrible. Your body has not betrayed you. It has not. Yeah. It is that we've been thrown out of balance in some way, shape, or form. And it could be we're thrown out of balance one way, or we could be thrown out of balance nutritionally. We have nutrient deficiencies. We are angry. We have unforgiveness in our heart. We could be a million different pictures of the puzzle. And when you start bringing them together, you're like, wait a minute, my body can come back into balance? I didn't know that.
Definitely. So we have just had somebody that's popped on and joined us. I can't see who it is, but welcome.
Welcome. I can't see either.
To have we got there, but this is our guest speaker, Laura, and she is absolutely smashing it with information for us today. So at the moment, we're just talking about mindset change and how that has actually helped both of us move forward and be able to completely change our lives, and just doing it through small steps. So yeah, definitely. So would you have tips in that you would recommend for anybody that's going through, the stress and the endometriosis, or even just like a chronic illness just in general, because I know you deal with?
Yes, any chronic illness. Endometriosis is a chronic illness. It's something that even if you have surgery, it's not going to, they say that there's no cure. So most people will accept that. So the steps that I would give people are, number one, what are you eating? What is at the end of your fork? That is the utmost of importance in your life, because food is either helping you or harming you. And then the second part is, and one of the biggest culprits, by the way, is is processed foods. That's going to be the biggest culprit. It's anything processed wreaks havoc with the body. When I removed processed foods, the transformation was absolutely amazing. My clients see results within 1 week of removing processed food. So there you have it. Yeah. The other step would be detoxification. There's some toxicity with any chronic illness. Now that could be food toxicity, it could be chemical toxicity, it could be stress, it could be unforgiveness, it could be any number of things. So if our elimination channels are not working properly, our skin, our lungs, our kidneys, our colon, then obviously we're not able to eliminate the toxins, and so we're burdened with them all. So nutrition, detoxification, exercise is fundamental. When I first got sick, I remember after diagnostic surgery, I was walking with a cane. I forced myself outside. I didn't want to walk. I did not want to walk, but I was like, I have to get my body out into the street, even with a cane, and I would walk around the block. And sometimes we do little things like that and we don't think it makes a big impact, but it does. It does.
Definitely. And it might make an impact right there and then, but it will down the track, won't it?
Sure. The other component is if there's any stress in your life or any kind of self-sabotaging emotions that we talked about before, guilt, resentment, and unforgiveness, anger, bitterness, jealousy, the list goes on. Unfortunately, we got to clean a little bit of house, and it's completely possible to do that. But understand that emotions that we don't heal, they stay in us.
there's a lot of self work to do to be able to move forward and have such a better life, isn't it? And it's whether you are willing to do that inner work, and as well as your outer work with doing your exercise, your juicing, and all of that sort of thing. I know for me, that is exactly the steps that I took. I took my diet seriously, but I never juiced. I actually did exactly what you said. I was very aware of being gluten-free. I was aware of just eating whole fruits instead of takeaways and things like that. So I too changed exactly, what I was doing. And I think that when you get to that stage where medication's not helping from the doctors and you're wondering what in the world you're going to do next, you're just about willing to try anything. So
You will.
yes,
You will.
so to be able to know that there's these things out there that we can still go ahead and do is just amazing. And it's just through education now that we can get it out there.
It is education. Knowledge is power. So just a quick tip. Yes, juicing was another step, by the way. I can't talk about it enough. We should all just do one on juicing, but just knowing that disease starts in one of two ways or both ways. It starts in either deficiency or toxicity. So once you understand that, you look at your body and you think, okay, I'm probably deficient. Most people are for many reasons. And I may be toxic. And in the case of endometriosis, there's both going on in there. But there's, in my case, if you've had endometriosis, you know how painful it is. I had pain 30 days out of the month, not just during my menses. I was 30 full days of horrible pain. And one of the minute changes that I started learning about from my mentors, which were holistic physicians, was incorporating more omega-3 fatty acids into my diet. So I started taking evening primrose, which is an herb. And lo and behold, I did take quite a few of those capsules at first because I was like, I need a fix, man. I'm hurting, bad. I don't want to take like 18 aspirin. But I think I took a few capsules of evening primrose, which is a very safe herb, and it knocked my cramps out completely. Which is amazing thing. And we're not told this.
No, we're not told that. Definitely not told that. And for me, like having the endometriosis, where mine was so severe as well that I ended up having the hysterectomy, I totally 100% know what you mean about the pain happening nearly every day of the month. And it got intensely worse for me when I did have my period, because then I didn't realize at the time until after I had my children, but the pain that I was going through every month was equal to giving childbirth.
Yes.
And it was just absolutely horrific. I didn't realize back then that, it goes and it grows onto other organs and things like that. And with me, I know with you, it was your left ovary. With me, it was my right. And my right ovary grew onto all of my bowel and stuff like that. So I had to go in and have that all done as well. But the thing that happened for me was that I was only 13 when this actually happened. So when I basically first started my periods, I was in immense pain straight away. So I look back on it now as a blessing, because if I hadn't have had that pain, I wouldn't have known to jump in and have my children as soon as I was married and be able to do those things. So for me, going on all those hormone tablets that they wanted me to go on to was definitely, I was never going to do it. It was what was suggested.
Yes.
And I did try and do a few other things as well. Back then, it was really tipping the scales because it was definitely right out there. I was very woo-woo at the time. I got called the gypsy out of the family.
Nice.
I know, and never lived it down ever since. Love being called gypsy and hippie.
That's right. I love it.
Fantastic. But for me, I still didn't have the amount of knowledge that I really needed to do it. But I also had different symptoms that come in for me where we were actually trying to have another baby, because I'd had my two boys and we really wanted to try and see if we could have a girl. My story goes that we were away Daryl had a little body truck, and we were away down at one of the sheep shows, and we were on the way home, and Daryl hit a bump, and I immediately felt myself prolapse, and I knew that I'd prolapsed. And the pain was just incredible. On top of the endometriosis pain, it was just incredible. So for me, I ended up at the doctor's, at the surgery the next day. And, instead of being offered anything else, it was immediate hysterectomy. We can have you in tomorrow having a hysterectomy. Fancy telling, a woman who's trying to have a baby that you can have a hysterectomy tomorrow. You can just imagine.
I can't imagine.
What that does to your mind is absolutely crazy. That's the first time I'd ever stood up to a doctor. And I suppose the moral of it here is that we do have the power in our own hands, and that we can say no, because I can remember I actually said, no, you are not doing that. This is what I'm going through, and you need to give me the respect that I deserve to get my mindset right to decide whether I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have that hysterectomy, or I am going to try and have another child. For me, having another child was out of the question, because I would have had to stayed in hospital for the 9 months and been on my back for the 9 months. You can't do that when you've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and a farm and a hubby and all these other businesses. It was just definitely not on. So to be able to have somebody like you in my life back then would have made a huge difference, because I would have been able to go in and say, hey, you can go and do the repair, but you are not doing the hysterectomy.
Right, because we don't know. And even if we do know, if we have an inkling that, okay, I heard that maybe I don't have to have the surgery. I'm hearing maybe, who do you ask if you don't know somebody? Because it's just not common knowledge that we can heal ourselves. I had to do 10 years of research, and I still research to this day for many other diseases. Obviously, it's always going down the rabbit hole. But I think something that you mentioned too is finding our voice. Because doctors, they are the rulers. They are the ones that find the problem, and they're the ones that write the prescriptions, and they're the ones that give you the prognosis of what's going to happen. And we have to trust them, because we don't know how to heal ourselves. My grandfather, my mom's not a shaman. She didn't raise me to know these things. I think in my case, when they did the diagnostic surgery, the doctor cut me inside. And they didn't know. So they sewed me back up through the laparoscopy and sent me on my way. And a couple days later, I had what looked like a tumor in my abdomen that was getting bigger by the day. And I went to the ER, and they said, oh, you've been bleeding internally. And that incident right there was enough to give me my voice. That right there, I was like, I'm not going back. I don't need to go back right now without me trying this on my own. And I want to give people back their power. Take back your voice. You do not have to do what the doctor says. They instill, not intentionally, but we have this fear about us that we don't have an inner voice, or we don't have the ability to try 3, 4, 5, 6 other modalities to see if they work. And we just present ourselves to the doctor like, here I am. I'm a piece of cake. Cut me.
Oh, that's the truth right there. I feel like we were talking about this before we actually jumped on, how our ancestors all had the more holistic healing in that than what we have actually been brought up with. So all of our generations were actually taught to treat our doctors and that as God, and to take what their word is what it's for, and really go with it. In my experience, I like I said to you before, I worked as a medical receptionist, and discovered that doctors are just people, and they're as good as what their knowledge is and their experience is and what they've been taught. And I think that is a really powerful thing to learn moving forward for anybody that's got a chronic illness. I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to go to your doctor, because you definitely need a mixture of both. But it's also good to know that you know your body best.
Absolutely. And, you know, like we were talking earlier, doctors in America and the US, they get very little nutritional training. So when I was going to the doctors, obviously no doctor said, oh, what are you eating? You know, if there's estrogen dominance, what's going on with your body nutritionally, or nutrition, or deficiencies in your body, or what kind of chemicals are being through plastics and through inhalation are we getting into our bodies? And if that were part of their mode of operation, I think we'd have a lot more success of people being able to take their power back and say, listen, I want to go ahead, and I haven't been eating clean. I've been very stressed out. I've been this, that, and the other, dealing with unforgiveness or something, or I've been living a sedentary lifestyle because of the pain. If we were given the chance to address it first holistically, I believe that so many women can reverse this chronic pain and chronic inflammation.
How awesome of a gift is that?
Yeah.
That's just
And
amazing.
it's not, I'm not magic. I'm not any more magic than you. I just happen to not want to digest what the doctor told me. And I did happen to get a wealth of knowledge through my own research. And I exist now to empower women to do the same, take those first steps.
It's really empowering to be able to empower people, and coming from the position of actually being there and done it. And I think that that in itself, those two things combined, are probably the most powerful thing that that anybody can give another person in this world, to be able to share their knowledge and share their experience, you know, with what they've actually been going through.
You and I were just talking about that. I believe truly in my heart that, you know, I grew up being a servant for my brother who was blind. So I was his eyes. It created in me a willingness and a desire to serve others. And whether we believe it or not, I told you earlier, we were laughing because part of my life, I'm like, yeah, we have a gift, we should share it with others. And then I went through a divorce and I'm like, I'm not sharing anything I know because I'm mean right now. But at my age, I'm in my mid 50s. We are here for others. We all have gifts. And my gift is, I don't have a niche. I don't have any specificity. I can't say that word. You know, it's wide what I do. What you do is wide. We have so much knowledge. What somebody that's listening into this, they may have knowledge in another area. When we share it, we become complete.
Definitely. And I think that that's the key to it all. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on there was that, just going back a step as well, when you do have hysterectomies, and that after you've had all of, you know, your endometriosis and things like that, you don't realize how much that's actually going to impact with different chronic illnesses as you actually move forward. So for me, I didn't realize that I would end up with osteoarthritis, which has definitely come through having my hysterectomy, and, you know, having my bones thinned down and all of that sort of stuff, and having my, you know, my joints go all weird and stuff like that. So I suppose the story, what I'm trying to get across is, try and catch it early if you can.
Yes, absolutely. I think catching it early, I think making these changes early on. Yes, I'm not saying that hysterectomy is not necessary for some people. Everybody is different, and I am not a doctor. I would never say that. I understand that pain tolerance is different for everybody. So what is a good answer for somebody may not be a good answer for somebody else. But I do want to say that finding out the chronic illness thing and tying it into lifestyle factors, the soonest that you can do that, because you're a living testimony that, yes, you had the hysterectomy, but you're on it now, because I know you eat correctly now. Now you understand the connection.
Mm.
There is a connection to our lifestyle. We are directly responsible.
Definitely. And the other big thing is, like you were saying before, is that mental connection and being able to bring that stress down. And I know for me, meditation does that for me. I can lower my blood pressure in a couple of minutes just through meditating. So there are so many benefits just through doing that one step that, you know, it's just life changing. So yeah,
I say that when I'm with my clients, I highly suggest meditation. And I think I told you I ran from it. It was woo-woo. It was tree hugging. I was like, I'm not doing tree hugging things. And so I was introduced to meditation much later in life, but that I'm seeing people that are healing themselves from incurable diseases with meditation. Why aren't we teaching this to our children? I gave you 2 testimonies from myself when I was doing specific healing meditations. I came out of one meditation with 20/20 perfect vision. And quite soon after that, I was having a little bit of back pain for a couple days, lower back pain, and I did a healing meditation and came out with no back pain, and it never returned.
yeah, that's awesome. And I've experienced similar experience.
And so I tell people, if we can make ourselves sick, because we do
We do.
with stress and our thoughts, then why can't we heal ourselves?
Mm. It's the flip side to the coin, really, isn't it?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Well, I think that we might leave it there today, and I will pop some of your details down in underneath this when I pop it up into the group, and so that, you know, people know where that they can contact you and all about your book as well. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. We might touch base and just hone in on a couple of different areas in the future, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I'd be honored to do that. I think as many people as we can reach to kind of open people's eyes to their own abilities, their own powers, their own healing self inside their intuition. I think more people will be empowered, and we can help a lot of people see that. And thank you, because it's been an honor to be here speaking with you, a comrade that has gone through such a similar path. We're on different continents, yet it's almost like we just were meant to meet each other for this particular reason, to know each other and reach other people.
100% agreed with that. It is it's just one of those things that you be grateful for in life, isn't it?
Yes.
It's one of the things that's just meant to be. Bit of
Yes.
there. So.
I have goosebumps. It's meant to be if it's meant to be.
Exactly. A bit of destiny happening. So
yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I will just
thank you.
Stop the recording now.
Okay.